The day may come when the courage of men fails, and we forsake our friends and all bonds of fellowship. But it is not this day, for this day we are just chill dudes with a full sack. Rest is so important, but not just rest for rest's sake, right? It's just rest because you're in a period of growth and you're in a time of growth. And sometimes the worst thing that you can do to yourself when you've been ascending on the spiritual path and you've got these spiritual highs, right? And you're just feeling bliss with everything, you're feeling one with everything, and it's amazing. It's amazing as a feeling. You've got a full sack. You are just living the life. You know, you just feel one with the universe and with the soul of existence all the time. And then after all these ascension processes, you start to get a little, not exhausted, but you see that if you don't integrate what you're learning, you're going to be right back to where you start. And so sometimes it's just best to just be the chill dude with the full sack. Just chill out a minute. Just take a breather. There's nothing wrong with you integrating that part of you that needs to be integrated. And like muscle, right? Muscle growth happens in rest. It doesn't happen when you're actually working out. It happens when you're eating well, you're staying nutritious, and you're just living in that active rest state. You're activating your parasympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system is responsible for your fight or flight. The parasympathetic nervous system is responsible for your digestion and calmness. And if you want to activate this parasympathetic nervous system, simply notice the breath and simply recognize that you are safe. Open your hands wide and just be willing to receive and surrender. But I'm not talking about surrender as in giving up. I'm talking about surrender as in you see that surrender is actually the fuel to your livelihood. Surrender is the connection to the soul of existence. However, to keep your sovereignty, and if you want to have your sovereignty, it's also more about seeing that you are still the one that is playing the part of surrender. You are seeing the surrender, and you are acting in a place from that surrender state. And so this time where it's time to settle down, it's time to just be chill, it's completely okay for you to rest and relax, but do so consciously. If you need to go into silent darkness and literally just be bored, like allow yourself to be bored. I think that we've become addicted to productivity as a society, and it's really caused a lot more harm than good for mental health. And your nervous system, I like to call it the solar timeline interface. The Regal Change old timers will know exactly what I'm talking about here. Because the solar timeline interface is connected to the light. You know, there really isn't a difference for the body between what happens in your mind and what happens out here. So if you have certain thought algorithms that you're continually thinking about or acting out in your mind, it's going to represent itself in the third dimension, the physical plane. So if you experience what you assume is going to happen, then you might as well assume miracles, right? Assume miracles, rather. You might as well assume miracles. You might as well assume that you're going to be living a joyous life. You might as well assume that you're going to be living a prosperous life. You might as well assume that everything that you want, the soul of existence is going to give it to you. But if you stay hung up on these thought algorithms of the past, like, oh, I I have to be doing this more, or I'm not going to be successful, or I'm going to have to keep grinding it out and lock in, bro. I really don't like that term, lock in. I don't like it. And I'm not attached to the not liking it. It's just the I see the underlying meaning of the word. And it's strange how this happens, right? It's strange how we can just see a word and we can be feeling a certain way about the word based off of our presuppositions of the word. You know, if we have certain presuppositions of the word, we're going to feel a certain way about it. But if we let go of those presuppositions, all of a sudden it's just a word. So while I do not necessarily like the locked in word, I completely recognize and have trust in the validity of what they're actually trying to say. Because to lock in essentially is just focus. Like that's pretty much it. Like just focus. As far as I can discern, that's what it means. So, you know, I get that it's like a new hip thing to talk about, but if you lock in for so long, like you don't need to lock in more. In fact, you don't need to lock anything. You don't need to be chained to anything. You don't need to be locked into anything. Now, devotion and commitment are two different things to me from being like locked in. Locked in is not a commitment. Locked in is not a devotion. To be devoted to something is to have the option to leave and yet still stay and be devoted to that which you're devoted to. So it's really about, can you discern certain things? Can you have a certain proclivity toward modes of being or preferences of mode of being without being attached to these preferences? Because if you can stay detached from the preferences, then everything's going to make a lot of sense. If you can stay detached from the outcomes, then you soon realize that the biggest risk in freedom is sometimes not taking the risk. But you can simply trust and assume that everything's going to work out, no matter what. This is what I mean when I say this, because I've mentioned a lot of this on my channel recently, both my channels, the Regal Shaman and this one, where you have to keep assuming that what you want to have happen will happen. And if it doesn't happen in the time that you think that it's supposed to happen, then one of two things are happening. Either you're trying to force reality to bend to your will in a certain way that goes against the laws of nature, or number two is you're putting too high expectations on yourself or other people. And I'm not saying to necessarily have low expectations. I'm just saying, and I'm not even saying to have realistic expectations, because have you ever noticed that realists don't really get what they want in the world? They don't. Realists, because I got to look at the facts. I've got to look at this. I've got to look at that. And I was this person for the last 5 years. I considered myself a realist. And where did it get me? It got me to a place where I was trying to please other people, not necessarily because I wanted to people please, but because I thought it was what I was supposed to do as a follower of Christ. I thought that's what I had to do. That's not what I have to do. I don't have to do that. Nobody has to do that. The world doesn't owe you understanding, and you don't owe the world understanding. That's right. So it's more about, can you let go of the expectations of the outcome, and can you just trust that what you want to have happen will happen? Because ultimately what happens is going to be what you want anyway. So chill out. Don't think that you need to grind more, especially when it comes to working out. I'm only working out 6 days a week right now. Now, I that may be a lot to some people still, but and I'm not even doing like extreme exercises, right? Like I'm not the most lean guy in the world, but I'm just a healthy dude. I'm just a healthy guy. I'm not trying to be super ripped, bro. Like I'm not trying to be like that. I don't need to be like that. I just want to be healthy and keep my muscle mass as I grow older and still be athletic. That's what I care about. Is I want to be able to be athletic and do things like I don't know. I went for a small hike recently, and it was way easier than it was. I haven't done this hike for years, and it was way easier than it was, years ago when I was like fat and 200 pounds and just a hefty boy, right? I was hefty at 5'6", mind you. So I was fairly hefty, and now it was a breeze. It was a breeze, and it comes down to just being more healthy and being more active, but in a way that's not going to like punish yourself. Because a lot of people, I think we have also a lot of masochists in our society where they kind of like get off on the grind. It's like a form of pride and vanity to them. Like, oh yeah, no, it's like don't get me wrong, I love David Goggins. I love David Goggins. He helped me through one of the most difficult times in my life. I have nothing but respect for the guy. However, I don't want to be like him when I grow up. I don't want to be, because like the body is kind of like, you know, a house or a temple, right? Like the body. Okay, let's use the temple because that'll probably resonate more with people. The body is a temple, which means that you've got to take care of take care of the lawn, or take care of the structure, not just the outer structure, but the internal structure, right? There's a certain form of maintenance that you have to have. You got to clean the bathrooms, in the body and in the mind. You've got to clean these things. You've got to make sure that, you know, wipe off the dust. It's maintenance is really most of the like maintenance is really just the key here. How do you maintain? But not just maintaining to maintain. You maintain the health of the temple while also being capable of reorganizing the internal structure or the outer structure as you need to. Because if you have like a beautiful outside temple, but then you go inside and it's like plain white walls and, dirty floors, and it's just like, ugh. That's most people that I see who are really into fitness, and their outside looks fantastic, but then inside their souls are just filthy. And then on the flip side, you have people that maybe on the outside they're, have you ever been on like the highway and you see those like old prairie farms or old prairie houses, and you look at that and it's just like, it looks like it's been abandoned, and you're like, oh geez, that's not my dream house. That's kind of what it looks like for most, like for a lot of people, that maybe their internal architecture, maybe there's some hidden treasure in there, right? Some great treasure, but nobody would know because they look at the outside and they're like, ugh. Well, I say, why not have, the integration of both? Why not integrate something outside and inside? Why not be luxurious inside and outside? It's not to say that you shouldn't be, or you should be luxurious outside or only inside. It's just that, why not be both? If you can try to make that sovereign evolution happen, why not? And this is where the full sack comes into play. The full sack is this alchemical gold that you can transmute all the time. Or it's rather the alchemical gold that is already transmuted. So just be chill. Don't try too hard. I think that we try too hard, and me, myself included. It's funny, when I stopped trying too hard to be professional, when I stopped trying too hard to be this or to be that, and I just was being who I was being and am being, things just started to click and work out because I wasn't trying to try. I was just being as I was being with the flow of life. So with all that being said, I hope that this message was useful and insightful for you. Stay blessed. Peace. Until next time.